Hello, this video is going to be about trade confirmation, and it is going to be about confirmation using a limit order on the order flow. So imagine there is a resistance zone which you created or found using, for example, volume profile or order flow or price action, doesn't matter. There is a resistance zone in here and you want to go short from there, and you are waiting for a confirmation in that area before you go short. So the price is moving upwards towards your resistance zone. It hits the resistance zone, and in that zone you want to see a big limit order somewhere in that zone, a big limit order which would tell you that somebody big was waiting there in that resistance zone, and they were waiting until the price reaches this resistance zone, the same as you, but you need somebody big, some big trading institution, alright? So when a big limit order appears in here in the resistance zone, you know that some big player knows about this resistance zone and that they are interested in trading it. They just jump in that short trade, and immediately after you see this limit order pop up on the order flow, you go short, you enter your trade. That's the confirmation of the resistance zone. Right? The logic behind this is big guys are waiting until the price reaches this resistance zone because they want to enter their trade there, and they are passive. This is important. They are passive, the same as you are, because they are waiting until the price reaches their limit order. And when they jump in, then it confirms the support and resistance zone. In this case, it confirms the resistance zone, and you should also jump in a trade as soon as you see their big limit order. Alright, so that's the short trade scenario. Now imagine there is a support. This support could be, for example, based on volume profile or order flow, any way you like, any way you prefer to find support zones. And the price is heading towards the support zone. It hits the support zone, and now you are waiting for the confirmation. You are waiting for a limit order to appear in that zone, somewhere in this area. So as soon as it appears, you enter your trade. You enter your long. If it doesn't appear, well, then you don't trade it because you didn't get the confirmation. Alright, so in short trade scenario, you want to see a sell limit in here. This needs to be a sell limit. And for a long trade, you need to see buy limit. This needs to be a buy limit in here. Alright, so this is how you use it. This is how you use the limit order as a confirmation. Now, I was talking about this in one of the first videos, and I know that this is a bit tricky stuff. People have problems with this, so I'm going to comment on this again because it's really important, especially with this confirmation strategy. What this is all about is how you identify that the limit order is actually a selling limit order. The tricky part is that selling limit order appears on ask. So in here, this is the ask side. Now the tricky part is that the order flow prints this cell in green color. So it sort of looks like those are buyers. But this is the tricky part, because when somebody uses a limit order, limit selling order, then it gets printed on the ask. So when you see a big number jump in around support and resistance zone on the ask, like in here, then it's most likely a selling limit order. It's not a big buyer who would want to jump in and push the price even higher with market orders. Because if there is a resistance zone in here, somewhere in this area, then this is most likely pending limit order of some big player who wants to jump in a trade and push the price downwards or enter in their short because they anticipate a sell-off from there. Alright, so important thing, sell limit shows on ask in here. A buy limit shows on bid, which is in here. This is big buying limit. Again, you can notice that the sell is red, so it sort of appears like those were aggressive buyers. But again, imagine that this is a strong support, and this huge number, this huge limit order appeared in the support zone. So most likely, you can't be 100% sure, but most likely this is a buy limit of a big player, a big passive player who was waiting until the price reaches the support and then they entered their buying position. So from that, you should expect a buying reaction. The support got confirmed. This is really important, and I really hope that I made it clear enough. I hope it makes sense. The whole strategy is based on this, so I hope it was clear. Now, what actually is a big limit order? How you can identify it? How big the number needs to be in order to be big, to be considered big? Now, there are three basic rules, and the rule number one says that the order is bigger than usual order. Now, I know that this doesn't sound too scientific, but this is how I do it. If you look at this picture and imagine that somewhere in here there is a resistance you want to go short from. So you are looking for a big number on the ask side, and suddenly this number appears. 211 contracts on ask. Now, if you look at all those numbers and all those candles which are around, on all those footprints which are around, then you can tell that 211 contracts is quite a lot. Actually, it's the biggest number from all those footprints. So this is how you can tell that it is unusually big number, because it is bigger than usual order, than any usual order in this area. So it's always best to compare with the other footprints in this area. If the number is way above average, then you can consider it a huge limit order placed by a big player. Now, rule number two. It's got a little bit more tricky here. Every instrument has their usual order volume different. So, for example, 211 contracts on the Australian dollar would be quite a lot, whereas on the S&P 500 futures, on the ES, it wouldn't be nothing unusual. So every instrument has their usual order volume, and that's why I recommend that you start with one instrument and get a feel for it. So for example, you start with the Euro futures and you only do this with the Euro futures, and you'll get the feel for it. You'll know if there is 211 contracts jumping in the European session. You'll know that this is a big number, and most likely this is a confirmation. All right, you'll get feel for the numbers. You will know what is above average, what is below average. All right, so that's why I recommend using the order flow and this confirmation method for just one trading pair at first, and then maybe add some more trading instruments, but start with one. All right. Now, rule number three, different time of day or different sessions have different average order size. So for example, if this was the 6E, the Euro futures, the European session, 8 AM in the morning, this would be a big number. But if this number occurred during the peak, which is the European session and the US session overlap, this is where most of the volumes get traded, then this number wouldn't really be anything that special. So you also need to pay attention to that. whether this number occurs during a calm period of the day, during a calm session, or during the peak. All right. And also during the news, of course, because when there's news, there are huge volumes. All right. So you also need to pay attention to that. Now, if you are starting with this method, with this confirmation method, if it is completely new to you, then just stick to the rule number 1, and it will suffice if you just look around, a few footprints around, and tell whether this number is big compared to the rest. All right? That's how I suggest you start. As you progress, as you get feel for it, you can start applying rule number 2 and rule number 3. But it's pretty much okay to start with the rule number 1. Now here is some additional info before we jump into some examples. I like to look for the confirmation on a 5-minute chart or on a 30-minute chart. Now, important thing is that if you look at 5-minute chart, then the unusually big number, the limit order, is usually smaller than if you are looking on a 30-minute chart, right? So you also need to pay attention to that. I suggest you only stick to one time frame. So let's say that you stick to 5-minute time frame and you only look for those confirmations there, only on 5-minute time frame. All right. Now, another important thing is that the order, the big limit order, doesn't need to appear all at once, because the institutions like to use iceberg orders, which means that, for example, this order 211 could be entered like 5 contracts, then 20 contracts, then 20 contracts, and so on, until they enter 211 contracts. And this could take, for example, 5 minutes. All right, that's the iceberg. So don't be surprised if this big number doesn't appear all at once. It can take some time. All right, so there could, for example, be 50, then after 1 minute, 100, after 3 minutes, 150, and after 4 minutes, 211. All right, so in a lot of cases, it won't appear all at once. Now, I already said this, but it is pretty important, so I'll repeat it. Limit needs to show an important support and resistance zone. So don't just follow 5-minute order flow looking for significant limit orders or significant numbers on bid or on ask. You need to read the bigger context for this. So that's why this is a confirmation strategy, all right? So those limit orders needs to be in significant support or resistance zones. So you want to watch the order flow only around those support and resistance zones. So you don't need to watch the order flow all the time if you just want it for a confirmation, all right? So let's say that this is a resistance zone, the price is getting to the resistance zone. You can have some alert in this area. So the alert gives you a signal, for example, sends you an email or plays some sound. Then you know that the price is heading to the resistance zone. You open the order flow and you are waiting for the confirmation. All right, when you see it, you enter the trade. Now let's make this more clear with some examples. This is Euro futures, 30-minute chart. Imagine that, for example, this area was a resistance zone and the price hit this resistance zone. And in this zone, you are waiting for a confirmation. You are waiting for a limit order. You want to go short because this is a resistance. You want to go short. So you are only looking at the ask side, this side of the footprint. You want to see a big number appear in here. All right, here it is, 242, unusually big number, right at your resistance. So as soon as it appears, you enter your short. Now let's go into another example. This is also Euro futures 30-minute chart. Now imagine there is a support in this area. It could be, for example, those heavy volume nodes in here, this one and this one, created in an uptrend. Now in this support zone, you are waiting for some confirmation. And because this is a support and you want to go long, you're waiting for a big number to appear on the bid side of the footprint, this side of the footprint. Now this number appears 187, which is significantly bigger than average number. And it appears in your support zone, somewhere within this support zone. That's the confirmation that somebody big also wants to trade this. They entered a limit, a pending order to buy, so you also buy and you go long immediately after you see this number jump in. All right. Now another example. There was a strong selling in here, and if you look at this place, there was a heavy volume node. So we can say that this area was a resistance zone. Not particularly a strong resistance zone, but let's say that you want to participate in a downtrend and you are waiting for some confirmation in this resistance area. I'm not saying that this is the best resistance area, but for educational purposes, let's say that this is a resistance area which you want to go short from if you see a confirmation, if you see a big selling limit order. So selling limit orders show on the ask side of the footprint, so you're interested only in those numbers. Now this is a huge number, 259. If you compare it to the rest of the numbers in this area, it's definitely way above average. So this is probably some big guy entering a limit order, a sell limit order. As soon as you see that, you press short. All right, that was the confirmation you are waiting for. Now another example, this is a 5-minute chart. So the numbers won't be that big as on the 30-minute chart. Imagine that there was a support somewhere in this area and you're looking for a confirmation in this area. Because you want to go long, because this is a support, you want to see big number on bid, because buying limit orders show on bid. This is your number 163. This is it. This is what you want to see to enter along. All right, that's the confirmation. Now another example, imagine that you found the support, for example, using volume profile somewhere in this area. This is a support, and you are waiting for confirmation in here. Because this is a support, you want to go long, and you are waiting for a big number to appear on bid somewhere in here. This is your number, 172, most likely a big limit buying order. When you see this big number, you enter short. Unusually big volumes traded around the support. Most likely somebody big was waiting there too, the same as you, right? Now in here the price was going upwards. Let's say that you had a resistance somewhere in this area. Maybe you used volume profile or price action to find this resistance, doesn't matter, but you're not sure whether you want to trade from there or no, so you want to see a confirmation. This is 5-minute chart, so the number won't be that great as if you were using a 30-minute chart. Now this 211 contracts appear in here on ask, which means that this is most likely a selling limit order. All right, somebody big was waiting with a pending order in here and they entered short, so you also enter short. All right. Another example, let's say that there was a support area in here, somewhere in here, and you're waiting for some big number appear on the bid. Because if big number appears on bid, that means that there was some buyer waiting until the price reaches his limit order. This is the big number you are waiting for, 160 contracts. When this number appears, you go long. Again, if this number appeared just out of nowhere, like for example in here 1984, then it doesn't need to be a confirmation to go long, you know, it needs to appear within the support zone. Otherwise, it's not too much help, all right? It always needs to appear in support or resistance zone. Now, this is 5-minute chart of the Euro futures. Let's say that somewhere in here was a strong support and you are waiting for a confirmation in this area. This is the confirmation, those big numbers, most likely limit orders, buying limit orders. And as soon as they appear, as soon as you're able to tell that those numbers are way above average, then it is a signal that somebody big was also waiting in this area. They have just entered their limit orders, or they are just entering their limit orders. And as soon as you see that, you go long. All right? Those huge numbers or unusually big numbers are on bid, which means they could be buying limit orders. Now, those numbers can actually also be market selling orders, right? So that's a pretty tricky thing, as I explained in one of the first videos. But because they appeared in a support zone, then the chances are that those are limit orders and that those guys are buyers. All right, so next example is Australian dollar futures, 5-minute chart. Let's say that this area was a resistance and you were looking for a confirmation to enter a short. So the price was moving into this area and you want to see a big limit order on the ask side in here. You want to see a big number in here, unusually big number. 147, way bigger than the average. All right, so that's the limit order. That's the number you were waiting for. Big players are jumping in with their limit orders, so you go short. Now this is the ES 5-minute chart. This is futures for Standard & Poor's Index 500. Now imagine that this area was a strong support and you wanted to see some confirmation before you enter a long trade. So price is going downwards. Suddenly this huge number appears on the bid. This is a signal that somebody big, some big trading institution, was waiting in here with a pending limit order to buy. And when you see that, you go long, right? Unusually big number created within that support zone. That's what you want to see on the bid side of the market. Now, as you can notice, there are also bigger numbers in here, for example, 520 in this area, but you're not interested in that because you only want to see some big number created around your support. You're not interested in this huge number, at least not with this limit order confirmation strategy. All right, so you want to see the big number, but you want to see it somewhere in here. If it appears in here, it means nothing, at least with this strategy. Now, this example is the futures for the Australian dollar. It's a 5-minute chart. Let's say that you have a resistance zone somewhere in here. You want to see a big number appear on ask side, because that would mean a big selling order. Now the first big number appears in here, 147, so that could be the first confirmation. Also 106 in here, that's another confirmation. Now this is 5-minute chart and all this can happen really fast. So for example, as the price is advancing upwards, there could be the 147, then a few seconds after that 106 in here. So both of those can be confirmations, and if you enter a short somewhere from this area, it's all right. It doesn't need to be from here, it can also be from here, all right? As soon as those buyers jump in, I mean as soon as those sellers jump in, those are sellers with limit orders most likely. So when you see that, you can just press the sell button and go short. Now another example, this is also the Australian dollar futures 5-minute chart. Let's say that this area is a support which you found, for example, using volume profile, and from this area you want to go long, if there is a confirmation, that is. All right, so you want to see a big number appear on the bid side of the footprint, because that means buying limit order. 117, in this case, if you compare it to the rest, it is a big number, so most likely this is a pending buy order of some big trading institution. As soon as you see that, you go long. Now in here there is a similar scenario. Let's say that this is a support area. You want to go long from there. Price is going downwards. You open up your order flow, 5-minute chart, and you are waiting for a big number to appear at bid. 215 contracts. That's what you are waiting for. That's the signal for you to go long. All right. Now you can also notice 161 contracts on the ask. And what this actually could mean is, first, a limit order by buyers, buying a limit order in here, and then aggressive buyers jumping in with market orders. It doesn't need to be like that, but in this case, I would say that it probably was like that. Aggressive buyers saw that somebody big entered the market, and then they started to jump in. Now I'll talk about this a little bit more in the next couple of videos, so let's just move forward into the last example. This is also Australian dollar futures 5-minute chart. Let's say that this is a resistance zone, and in this resistance zone you want to see the confirmation. You want to go short, so you want to see confirmation on the ask side of the footprint. You want to see a big number, unusually big number, on the ask side. This is the number, this is the unusually big number. As soon as this appears, those 160 contracts, you go short. That's your confirmation. This is most likely a selling limit order of somebody big. Alright, so that's the confirmation number 1. Confirmation using a limit order, where we try to identify limit orders, and those help us to see whether there are big players waiting at the same support or resistance zones as we are. And if they start jumping in, then we see their limit orders, and we also participate in that move, which is likely to follow. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.